Lying in the tub, watching the gentle steam rise above me, thoroughly enjoying the embryonic warmth. I swear to myself I'll be home by midnight. New Year's Eve has always been an introspective holiday for me, like my birthday. I vow that I'll be in a quiet place by myself when the clock strikes the new year. I don't really know why I still go out to these bars, but I do as if I were compelled to do so. I know that I hope to find someone there, but still know that there isn't really anyone I want or need that would ever hang out at places like these bars. I go out and look anyway, somehow hoping that the impossible will occur. And from time to time, it does. I met Tony at CC Slaughter's on the first night I went out exploring my new surroundings here in Portland. He asked me to dance, and I was beside myself with excitement over this. He was about my height and weight, but assembled so very differently than me. He seemed taller than he actually was, if that's possible, but only because he was so well put together. He was tall, dark, distant, and very handsome. We danced for a while, and when the song had finished, I went to get a drink. When I returned, he was gone. A few weeks later, I was leafing through a local gay paper, and I came across his picture above a caption that referred to him as the contact person for an activist group. I called the accompanying phone number on the spot and asked for a date. We lasted for 3 months, 3 romantic but ultimately frustrating months, during which we couldn't seem to see enough of one another. Finally, Tony, having recovered from his bout with spring fever, decided to go back to his normal life, which evidently did not include me. I met Larry about a year later at the Brig. He was absolutely dripping with friendly Southern charm and a smile that would light up a small village. He seemed to take a real interest in me right off the bat, and I was not having a problem with this. We lasted for 3 months, 3 sexually compatible months, during which I learned a great deal about what I do and do not like from a wonderful man who seemed quite motivated to help me figure that out. I met Lance at the Embers on a balmy summer night about a year later. He was, to this day, the most effeminate man I had ever taken an interest in. Super smart, too, and an accomplished pianist. He was in college working on a master's degree in psychiatric nursing. We lasted for 9 months, 9 very dramatic months during which I watched what happens to a person who has suffered the loss of both parents at once without having the time to grieve. I can only hope as I tell you this story that he has found some peace. Of course, an endless parade of changing faces is never what I had in mind, but it is the general rule that has followed me through most of my younger life. I am calmed by the smell of the sandalwood incense and the subdued atmosphere of the ritual I had created to prepare myself for the merriment that would follow. The room was lit only by 3 votive candles like the ones I would light in churches for years as a child, hoping that the little flame and the concomitant prayers would bring my family back together. Just as I'm about to submerge my head beneath the thick layer of bubbles in the tub, the phone rings. For some reason, this time, I actually get out of the tub to answer it. The last time I saw my brother Mike was the year after I graduated from high school. We both ended up in the home of our Aunt Jo and Uncle Bill in suburban Mount Clemens on the same day. I suspect that Aunt Jo had secretly arranged it to see what would happen. She knew that we hadn't seen one another since we were little kids. I imagine Aunt Jo was expecting a grand reunion where me and Mike would fall tearfully into a brotherly embrace at being reunited at long last. It wasn't like that at all. When we found ourselves together at Aunt Joe's that day, I was 18 and he had just turned 20. We had grown up completely separated from one another. I didn't even know where he was all those years. Inside, we knew that we should love one another because we're brothers after all and had been through a lot together in a very compressed amount of time. Yet we also felt like strangers because in a real sense, we were. We spent the day sort of communicating through our younger cousins and Aunt Jo, hardly ever addressing one another directly. It just felt too strange. Both of us wanted so badly to say what neither of us knew how to verbalize, but both of us felt so deeply you could cut the atmosphere with a knife. Later that day, Mike and his friend were giving me a ride home to Warren. He pulled a joint out of his pocket and suggested that I smoke it with him and his friend. I was so terrified that I demanded that he stop the car and let me out. This took him completely by surprise. He promised to put the joint away and begged me to stop freaking out, but I would not be consoled. I was a good little Catholic boy, and good little Catholic boys do not smoke pot or even hang out with those who do. Against his pleading, I got out of the car and hitchhiked my way home. That was the last time I saw my brother Mike until almost 30 years later. I pulled myself up out of the tub and grabbed a towel on my way to the phone, dripping water and bubbles along the floor as I went. It's my brother Mike. He tells me the story about how he got my phone number from our adopted mother, who had recently heard from me for the first time since I was graduating from elementary school. Mike was beside himself with excitement and was going on and on about things that had happened when we were little kids together. My heart was being lifted by hearing his voice again. It was like nothing had changed. When I confessed to him that I'm gay, he dismissed my profound announcement in his standard casual manner. Hell, I knew that when they brought you home from the orphanage. Those were his exact words. From the sound of his voice, his phrasing, the inflections, and the way that he talked, I was immediately thrown back to a time in my early childhood. He hadn't changed a bit. He is very much the same young boy who never seemed to be ruffled by all the turmoil going on among the adults around us. The same young boy who, when I was left sitting at the dinner table long after the folks had finished eating because I would not eat that damn piece of liver, would sneak into the kitchen and eat it for me so that we could both get on with our lives. I would return the favor when he was left at the dinner table scowling with disgust at the boiled spinach on his plate. That same young boy who taught me how to hunt frogs and cook their legs for dinner. That same young boy who so courageously considered it his appointed duty to protect me from schoolyard bullies. The one who had held me and told me that everything was going to be all right that day outside the courtroom just before we were separated for good. That same young boy was now 40, and while I listened to him tell these long forgotten stories, I was having trouble containing just how much I loved him, how good it felt to hear his voice again. To realize just how little he had changed consoled me in a way that I had not been consoled since that day outside the courtroom. Sometimes I wonder if Mike knew just how good he was at being my big brother. As we talked, I was stricken with how memories that were so vague to me were so clear to him. It's amazing how much more that you can understand when you're 8 than you could when you were 6. As we hung up the phone, I realized that I hadn't said what was probably the most important thing that I was feeling the whole time that we talked on the phone. I didn't say, I love you. Not that day. This piece, Cut to the Future, was originally written to be the introduction to my book, Searching for St Germaine, the true story of a gay Catholic orphan. It didn't make the cut, but I wanted to share it with you because I like it so much. Anyway, what's important about this book, Searching for St Germaine, by G.L. Franklyn, that's me, is that it is probably the best book that you have not read yet. It's available now to order wherever books are sold. Also at my website, glfranklyn.com, at Amazon and Ingramspark. Get yours today. You won't be sorry.